and they had a Capricorn colorway, and I'm a Capricorn, which you wouldn't know because one of the things that's supposed to be true about Capricorns is that we're good with money, and this is all of the yarn that I've purchased in less than a year and a half. So you tell me if astrology is real. I can't believe that I decided to do this video today of all days because it has been the longest heat wave that I've experienced since I moved to London in like 2018, I think. Like I said, it's like 85 degrees today, and that's in Fahrenheit. If you're one of my UK viewers, it's, I don't know what it is. In Celsius, it's, I had to blow dry my entire body on cool, like whatever that is. I say all of this because I had to bring all of this yarn down from my office. There was not enough room for me to go through my entire stash. Right, I should mention, I figured I'd do a stash tour. Why I decided I was going to do this when it's 85 fucking degrees out, I have no idea, but here we are. I hope you enjoy it because boy, am I sweating. Just got the house clean. I thought it would be nice. I'd be like, oh, for once I can do something in my living room and you can see how cute it is. You can't see how cute it is because it's so full of yarn. Am I suffering from heat stroke? Maybe I'm suffering from heat stroke. Anyway, this is almost all of the yarn in my stash. This is
all the drugs I never did.
Everything that is not currently being used for a project. And I'm sure you might be looking at me and being like, oh, Elizabeth, this is kind of a lot, but it's not a problem. You have to remember, I've been knitting less than a year and a half. Anyway, I really like yarn. I really like you. I thought it would be cool to go through my stash with you and sort of go over the projects that I bought it for, why I bought this yarn. Let's see if I can remember why I bought all of this yarn. I think I'll do pretty well. For a very, very, very long time, I would only buy yarn if I knew exactly what I wanted to make with it. So believe it or not, all of this yarn, most of this yarn represents ambition. It represents specific projects that I know I want to make someday. Will I get to them? We'll see. Okay, let's start with the largest yarn because it is actively falling on me. This is another thing I want to say that I'm very proud of. Of all the yarn that I brought down, and you can see I brought down a substantial amount, I actually only dropped 2 containers of yarn. Super proud of myself for that. One I did was one of the larger ones. It was up on a high shelf and it may have fallen when I was trying to get it out and I may have broken the lid, but it's fine. It's fine. That will just motivate me to make that project sooner, right? Sure. And the other was, I guess, what we can start with because you've seen this relatively recently, this Rico Cozy Baby Cotton Cashmere. I really love this yarn. I just used it to make a tip top tank. I bought more than I thought I needed. I probably have enough to make another tank top here. That's probably what I'm going to do with it. Maybe for a friend. Maybe I'll use it to make one for Gwen actually, because the one that I made her, as I mentioned in a recent video, was hot garbage. You guys, it's so bad. So, Rico Baby Cotton Cashmere, this is sport weight. Really enjoy this yarn, actually. When Gwen turned 22, we spent the day out in London together. We went to her favorite place for ramen, and that happened to be fairly close to Loop Yarn in Camden Passage here in London. So we went there and she picked out some yarn that she hoped I would someday use to make something for her. So we have this linen blend. It's 40% wool, 25% llama. I didn't even know that I bought any llama yarn. 20% silk, 15% linen. So I believe that this is a fingering weight. It's a nice, natural, undyed color. Feels surprisingly soft for something that has linen in it. And then she absolutely loved this mohair that I can't remember the name of. It is, a lovely mohair, but it came in a skein. And when I balled it up, I feel like most of the fuzziness came off of the mohair. I also really don't like knitting with mohair, as I've mentioned repeatedly. And as I've said, I gave away all of my mohair but this because I promised Gwen that I would make something with this for her someday. And someday I will. If anyone, I really do feel like this lost most of the hair though. Maybe it just needs, does it fluff up when you block it? Can someone tell me if I ruined this very expensive mohair? I certainly hope I didn't. But this is a project someday for my oldest. This is a project someday for my youngest. Believe it or not, each of these are 15 liters. 15 liters of yarn. And each one of these giant containers is one sweater quantity. And these are for the same sweater. These are both We Are Knitters, the wool, and these are both for coordinating fab sweaters, which I believe means fat ass brioche, fabulous ass brioche, something ass brioche. They're gorgeous. I saw them. It was the first and maybe the only time that I've ever seen a pattern and immediately needed to buy exactly the yarn that was used in the pattern. I'll throw it up on the screen, but this is the one for my Gwen. As I've mentioned before, my kids are sort of the two houses meme. If you've seen the two houses in California, I'll throw it up on the screen. The idea is to do a 2-color brioche sweater with this beautiful natural, man, this is some sheepy smelling wool. This nice, beautiful undyed, framing this beautiful unicorn color. And it does take 3 skeins of this and 3 skeins of the unicorn in order to make an entire sweater. This is going to be a very heavy sweater. These are the needles that I have to make the sweater on. I actually think, yeah, these are interchangeable. I think these are the smaller. These are 15 millimeter needles. This is just for the collar and cuffs, and then I think you go up a size. It's bananas. Should I be embarrassed that I was just caught making a YouTube video? Nah, it's probably fine. I've got the window open, so he definitely could have seen. So anyway, this is the colorway that I chose for Gwen. Then for my goth, my Aspen, framing this beautiful, I think it's Bordeaux colorway with, man, the sheep on this, I'm telling you, with black. So this is something that I do a lot for them. I'll knit them the exact same pattern, but I'll use very different colors, and they're super happy with it. It's a way for me as a mom to feel like I'm still doing that thing where I'm putting them in cute matching outfits, but they feel like it's custom enough, it's cool enough that they don't mind so much. And now we have, I would call this overkill of a sweater quantity of yarn because it was an accident. So I bought this black yarn for a blanket that I'm making my husband for our 6th wedding anniversary. But it turned out I just felt like the black was a little too harsh with all of the blues that I was using, so I decided to buy some charcoal gray instead, which means I had a lot of this black yarn and I didn't know what to do with it. I think this is going to be the main color in a Kudavikika stripe hype sweater with this incredible mini skein advent that I got from the Fiber Fox. I'm just going to, you can't see all of the colors, but it's an absolutely beautiful gradient. I really love these, and it goes from like this very light pink into these really rich charcoal colors, like light to mid charcoal. And I think that that will look really lovely being offset by the black. This is from a local dyeing place. It's a Stitch Up. I believe they're in East London, and this is their awesome Aran 100% blue face luster. I've got to try to get to the stuff behind me. You know what? Before we do that, I'm actually going to do the stuff on the couch. So these you might have seen actually in the background of some of my YouTube videos. These are really incredible mini skein sets from River Knits. It's in their jewel rainbow colorway. And I love these, and I'm planning on making Aspen a fade sweater with these, which is why I have 2, because from what I understand, the technique for fade is sort of doubling up on the yarn. Yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna get to it. And it's so pretty that I thought until I get to the point where I'm actually knitting something with these, they'll be really decorative. This I've done an entire video on already, but I'm gonna show you anyway because I love it. This is 45 skeins, well, 45 micro skeins of hand-dyed cashmere from a local dyer called Chroma Nima. Each one of these colors in the corner is 100% pure single color dye. And then everything in the middle is made up of different percentages of those 3 colors. It's absolutely beautiful. At some point, I've decided that I'm going to be making a little gems shawl with this. I'm going to be getting some undyed cashmere from Chroma Nima to go along with this. And I'm just so excited. It's, I believe, a heavy lace weight, which is why, you know, normally I would not pay hand-dyed prices for undyed cashmere, but this is such a unique weight of yarn that I really want to make sure that it matches. And I think just the stuff that she's doing is incredible, and I absolutely want to support Vicky. So the more of her yarn I can buy, the happier I am, frankly. And this is just absolutely beautiful. So I've also just been using it as decoration in my office until I get around to it. These are 2 different sweater quantities of the same yarn, so I thought I'd do them at the same time. I bought these on impulse after I bought Kudo Vikika's latest book, Knit This. There were a couple different patterns in there that I got very excited about that called for a sport weight. And as I've mentioned before in the ill-fated Henley video that I did, Via by Lang is one of my favorite sport weight cotton blends. So this is for, I'll throw the pattern up on the screen. It's like a t-shirt weight sweater that has little lace details in it that she photographed her husband wearing. And I thought that that was really cool. And I thought it would look great on Adam. So I got a bunch of the Via by Lang in this beautiful green that I think will look great on him. The thing that made me buy Knit This is the pattern for her coffee run sweater, because my boss has a sweater from, I believe he said it was Rice, that's very similar. It's got those cool, really wide raglans, and I absolutely love that sweater. And it was so funny because the first time he wore it, I couldn't stop staring at the raglans. And I was just like, that's a really cool sweater. And then later on, we were hanging out, and I was like, would it be weird? I found a pattern that looks almost exactly like this. Would it be weird if I knit a sweater that looks like the one you're wearing? And he was like, absolutely not. That would be incredible. So maybe we'll do a who wore it better once I get around to it. So I got this I got it in almost, again, like an undyed mix. One of the things I really love about Via in particular is the heathering. It's 74% cotton, but it also has 10% yak and 16% merino. So the darker bits in here that you see, that heathering is from the yak. And I feel like this, it's a light chainette. I think it has incredible depth of color, and it feels so breathable, and I just love the fabric that it makes. So again, if you don't super love knitting with cotton, this is one I'd really recommend. Getting up every time doesn't seem sustainable, so I just brought over a big stack of these smaller containers. These very rarely would be sweater quantity. Mostly it's not. All right. So this is a local yarn that I bought in Chamonix when Adam and I were in Geneva. We took a day trip to Chamonix. It was absolutely lovely, and they had a yarn shop in town, so I wanted to get something local. I have no idea what I'm going to do with these 2 balls of really rustic, and by rustic I mean scratchy, virgin wool that are right from Valgreniche. I don't know where. It's very local. I can't remember whether it was French or Swiss. But I really love the color. I really, again, love the heathering. I love how local it is. That area of the world is one of my very favorites, so I thought it would be cool to get some yarn from there. I don't know what to do with rustic wool. I really don't. I figured 100 grams was good. I think it's worsted weight. Any suggestions, please let me know. This is probably the only sweater quantity, I would say. No, I've got another one down there. In these small things. This is from Expression Fiber Arts. I believe this is New York at Night. This is their pearlescent fingering, which is just the softest, silkiest. Well, it should be silky because it's 50% superwash, 50% silk. But I absolutely love this colorway. And I've been wanting to make an Amy Herzog pattern, I believe called Moscato, in this. So here's why I've been holding off. I love this yarn. It's so luxe, it's so beautiful, and I want to make a real showstopper of a garment with it. And so one of the things I love about this Amy Herzog pattern is that it calls for a lot of small buttons. It has decorative epaulets. There's just a lot of small, beautiful button details. And so I spent a long time searching for the perfect buttons. And then on Etsy, I found small, beautiful, vintage Hermes gold-plated buttons that would set off this beautiful deep blue-green so beautifully. Those buttons were expensive. And every time I think about starting this project, I ask myself if my knitting skills are worthy of the buttons yet. And so far they're not. Someday though. This is maybe the most aspirational of all of the projects. Not because it's the hardest. I definitely have yarn that I bought for more technically challenging projects, although this one is knit flat, pieced and seamed. you know, I feel pretty comfortable with that. I've done that with Amy Herzog patterns before. It's really about just making sure the finished object is worthy of the buttons. That's really what it comes down to for me. These are already caked up because I haven't started a project with these yet, but I'm planning to fairly soon. This is a Christmas present for my brother. I would say, Tim, if you're watching this, skip this part, but Tim doesn't even know that I have a YouTube channel, so who cares? All right, so I'm planning on making the Wedgwood scarf shawl thing by Stephen West. And it's also what heavily inspired the blanket that I'm working on for my anniversary with my husband. It's really beautiful. It starts with these really thin, I guess this is why it's called Wedgwood. It starts with really thin stripes that sort of widen out, or maybe they start wider and then they turn into thin wedges. But basically it's intarsia with these beautiful wedges in stockinette that are framed by garter stitch. And so these are both Art Yarns Merino Cloud. This is a really beautiful, intricate colorway called Mercury Sun. And I think for this kind of pattern where you have these frames framing simple stockinette, that's when a variegated yarn really shines. So I got that in Mercury Sun, and then the main color is just squid ink. I'm really amazed that I remember the names of these colors, you guys. These are single skein problems, is the way that I would put it. This is a verb for keeping warm, lambkin. This is left over from my beanie number 6 that I made. This made such an incredible fabric, and it really was a showstopper, but it was such a pain in the ass to work with that I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with this. It will probably someday end up being another beanie number 6 if I get a request from somebody that I love very much. And then this was something I bought on the Bay Area yarn crawl. I made a video of my experience with that. This was from an incredible yarn store in Alameda, California called Coven of Stitches, which just had such a wonderful, warm, inviting vibe. I bought a ton of stuff from there. My favorite mug of all time is the mug that I got at Coven of Stitches. I really hope they open an online store at some point because I would buy multiple of those mugs. Anyway, this is Bay Farm Dye House. It's their workhorse sock, and this is in Rabaya. I don't know. I'm gonna hold this up to the camera and you'll see why I don't feel comfortable trying to pronounce that. But it's I believe it was one of their custom colors just for Coven of Stitches. And I thought it was beautiful, and I thought I could make a Sophie scarf or similar for my daughter Gwen with this. This is the other part of my order from Expression Fibered Arts. This is their black and bronze colorway in pearlescent worsted. And I was making a V-neck sweater. I talked about this a bit in my Worst Whips frog or finish video. I was making a V-neck sweater that was just a little too deep of a V with this. Actually, I said I wasn't going to bring down yarn for things that are in progress, but this is still, even if I don't frog it, this is still probably a sweater quantity of yarn, and I need to figure out what to do with it. This is another Chromanema special. These are caked up, but I'm almost afraid to use them. Heavy Cobweb, I think is what she said, which is, I guess, like a light lace weight. I believe Contemplation is what she calls this, which is just pure undyed cashmere that is then dyed with indigo. So these 3 skeins were there was a very small part of the skein that was left untouched by the indigo. And then for this skein, there was just one small part of the skein that had a drop of indigo. And I just thought that they were incredible. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with these. I was thinking something like a Sadie top, but the yarn is so thin that I'm worried that it's going to look a little too holey. I might have to do some math in order to get the gauge that I want. So in order to get the holes the way that I would like them, since I'm not really cashmere isn't as fuzzy as mohair. But I'm really bad at math, so I haven't gotten around to that yet. And also these are just so beautiful and so expensive that I haven't really had the guts to do anything with them yet. Then I've showed this a couple times. I showed this is one of the ones that I had my husband guess the price of, and I talked about it in my Bay Area yarn crawl video as well. This is from a place in Tajikistan, and it is specifically made from a local hybrid of the kind of goats that give you cashmere and the kind of goats that give you mohair. And it was hand spun by this woman. So this was $80 US a skein.
Okay. Shout out to Tajikistan.
But this is Kashgora. This is hand spun by a woman named Gulchera. It's, fair trade. So that's pretty cool. What do you think the over-under is on me making Adam carry all of this back up to my office for me? I think it's pretty high. So here we're getting into less rational purchases, things that I bought that I did not have plans for, or where my, the best laid plans of mice and men, etc., etc. This is Einrum Pure Silk. I bought this because it was on sale at Tribe Yarns. I have no idea what I'd do with it. I think it's a weird color. It doesn't really work for me, so it'd have to be a gift knit. I just got excited that I could get pure mulberry silk for cheap. So this is yarn from a local dyer in Copenhagen called Thelma Steiman. And I bought this as one of the blue colors for the blanket that I'm knitting for Adam for our anniversary. The color temperature on the photos made it look much more like a light blue than sort of a minty green, blue-green that it turned out to be. And the color just didn't work with the other colors that I have. So now I have 4 skeins of this Aran. It is quite beautiful, but it's not a color, again, that I really know what to do with. This is not a color, this is not a me color, this isn't an Adam color, this is maybe a Gwen color, but the gray isn't really her. So this might turn out to be another gift knit for somebody else. I just have to think about it. All right, so this was an impulse purchase from Fiber for the People, Taylor Earl. This multiverse colorway that she was dropping in merino mohair. I just love the colors. And I also thought it would be absolutely perfect for this sweater that I've been wanting to make since I very first started knitting by Lisa Much. Lisa Much has some incredibly cool, unique sweater designs that I really love. This was for the Obsidian, which is a really wide, drapey cowl neck that I just absolutely love. I tried knitting it before when I didn't realize that I was knitting through the back loop all the time. I couldn't figure out why I was just continually screwing up joining in the round, because it was my first time ever knitting in the round, and that's actually how I figured out that I was constantly twisting my stitches. Anyway, I really love this colorway, and I'm very excited to make this sweater at some point. I need to move that one up in my queue, honestly, because that's really cool. This is a sweater quantity of Malabrigo Rios that I bought when I accompanied my husband on a work trip to North Carolina in September of last year. I'd never seen Malabrigo in person before, and the vibrancy of the color and the beautiful variegation absolutely just got me. I still haven't fully decided what I'm going to do with this. This was definitely an impulse purchase from my hometown heroes, Farmer's Daughters Fiber in Great Falls, Montana. I fell in love with this color. It's green, bitch. Because you know what, bitch? It is green. It is green. And it's also Bear Paw DK, which I believe is a Yak Silk Superwash Merino blend. And I just, emerald green is one of my favorite colors, and I don't know if I'm going to get around to it, but the dream really is to knit up the Afra sweater by Irene Lynn in this vibrant green and wear it when I go see Wicked 2 with my kids. The first time I saw that sweater, I was like, oh man, like the topography of sort of the details really reminded me of like the vibes of the Emerald City. And so when I saw this yarn, I was like, oh, that's what I'm gonna knit the Afra sweater in. It's gonna be my Emerald City sweater. We'll see. Then this sort of violates the scrap rule because I have used some of it, but I haven't used all of it. So I have this incredible undyed camel silk that I got from Tribe Yarns that I held quadruple in order to make the more luxe version of the beanie number 6. And it's a really, really beautiful color. I love the sandiness. And then when I was at Atelier Yarn, I believe it was Atelier Yarn, it might have been Imagine It, in San Francisco during the Bay Area Yarn Crawl, I absolutely fell in love with Handmaiden Camel Spin, which is this beautiful hand-dyed camel silk, in which is partially Adam's home. Adam can come in.
I saw the curtains open and I was like, oh no, either
my wife's been kidnapped.
Yeah, a bandit has broken into our house and opened our windows, or my wife is like filming or something.
Ta-da! I'm gonna need your help to get all this back to my office. Okay. Anyway, So I didn't even really realize it at the time that I bought this, but as you can see, particularly on this one that's sort of indigo dyed, what I thought was this beautiful sandy color that they had incorporated is actually just the natural color. This is only partially dyed. I was sad because this was the only skein of this color they had, and these were the only 2 skeins they had of this colorway. But I could stretch it out with all of this undyed camel silk that is the same weight. So I keep it all together because I'm like, I could sort of micro stripe it in maybe. I think I could incorporate the undyed in a way that really stretches the hand dyed. And I still need to figure out what I'm going to do with that again. Again, it might end up being something like a Sadie top. We'll see. This is not yarn that I bought at the Bay Area yarn crawl, but it is yarn that I bought because of the Bay Area yarn crawl. When I was there, I bought their house yarn bread and butter in bun, which I believe is the chunky weight, to use for my beanie number 6. And I absolutely fell in love with the feel of it. It's soft, but still feels very firm. You get incredible stitch definition with this. And later on, I was home, I was browsing the Verb for Keeping Warm website, and I absolutely fell in love with the colorway Coastal Redwood. So I bought this for myself with plans to make myself a Winter League pullover. I've already made one for Adam in a very different yarn, and I just thought that this would be like the perfect fall sweatshirt. This is sort of my fancy fingering miscellany box. So most of this is actually silk yak silk from Tribe Yarns in some really gorgeous colorways. I was thinking about the Ixtal cowl. And then also in here, I bought extra of the violet for these bad boys in case I needed something for trim. I did a whole video about this yarn already. This is the first big splurge I ever made on yarn. This is Art Yarn's Marina Cloud in the limited edition, no longer available Bronze Goddess colorway. And then I also got 2 skeins of the same yarn in silk and sequins light. And like I said, this was my first big purchase. I had no idea how difficult it was to get strongly variegated yarn into something that felt wearable and elegant. And I had no idea what to do with silk and sequins. I just thought that this was just a beautiful object to own. And I wasn't really thinking about how often I would wear a knitted object that had sequins and beads. So I'm still trying to figure out what to do with this. I think the front runner remains the ballerina wrap top by Alexandra Tavel, 2 of Wands, in which I would use the silk and sequins as I-cord edging or as the I-cord belt. That is probably what I'm thinking right now. This was more impulse yarn. I'm saying this a lot, and I think I hear my husband laughing about it in the background. When I purchased more yarn from Farmer's Daughters Fibers for the anniversary blanket that I'm making, I had to also get more of the bear paw DK because yak silk is, particularly merino yak silk, is one of my favorite fiber comps, and they had a Capricorn colorway, and I'm a Capricorn, which you wouldn't know because one of the things that's supposed to be true about Capricorns is that we're good with money, and this is all of the yarn that I've purchased in less than a year and a half. So you tell me if astrology is real. Anyway, it's a really beautiful color. Again, I might do like the Andra Mowry Weekender or some other sweatshirty type vibe sweater with this because it's almost like a denim color. But I think the fabric that it will make is so luxe, and I really love the juxtaposition of that. This was only semi an impulse purchase. I'd been thinking for a while that I was going to knit objects for my siblings for Christmas this year. And then I was in New York for work, and I went to Knitty City in Manhattan, and they had this incredible Plucky Knitter cashmere DK. And so I bought a bunch of mini skeins of it to make things for my siblings. This really dark blue was originally what I was thinking for my brother before I landed on the Wedgwood scarf. I'm sure that this will work out really well for someone else. This vibrant yellow-green really reminds me of my niece Ashley, my sister Wendy. Peacock blue is like her color, and she actually loves peacocks as well. So this is probably going to be a hat, or maybe a hat and a Sophie scarf. The pink I'm not sure about. I just really loved the sort of corally pink of this, but In hindsight, I'm not sure. My family's not really pink people, as you might be able to tell from my vibe. So maybe that becomes something fancy for Gwen. This is a sweater quantity of yarn I bought to make a sweater for Adam. I really fell in love with the Coconut Blue limited edition. This is all fingering weight, and there's 2 different colorways. This is the Jean Michel version, which I believe is a little bit more faded than the traditional Coconut Blue, which we'll get to in a minute. I liked the white speckle, and I also liked the sort of inverse. You saw that I'm into this kind of vibe when I showed the Chromanema Contemplation Indigo Cashmere. And I was thinking it would be really cool to do stripes of these too, because again, I didn't know a lot at the time. And now the more I look at it, I'm like, well, will you even be able to tell that it's striped because they're so similar? They're just sort of the inverse of each other. I think the stripes would have to be fairly thick. I'm going to do something with this yarn for Adam at some point, but I think it requires a little bit more thought than I gave it when I purchased the yarn. Speaking of Coconut Blue, this is what I bought for me, which is the Aran Weight Original. As you can see, it's so dark, it like almost looks like deep purple, maybe almost black. And then when you get really close, those places where it lightly sort of fades into the white, I just love that. I love that so much. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with this. I believe I had a cardigan in mind when I purchased it. I don't remember what the cardigan is at this point, so that's on me. I guess this is technically cheating because I technically have a whip for this yarn. It's maybe the first or second whip that I ever had. This is the same Tribe Yarns Yak Silk, but it's in burgundy. And I've been making myself an Isham Road with this yarn for almost 1.5 years, like for almost as long as I've been knitting. I've been working on that. But I've been working on it very much in starts and stops. I've had to unravel it a couple of times. And then I've moved on to other things. I think eventually I'll make it. I'm just not there yet. This is Malabrigo Arroyo. I bought this before I really learned about superwash. I saw the Malabrigo Rios that I bought that I showed earlier in that local yarn store in North Carolina. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I can't. I fell in love with the vibrancy of it. And so I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that yarn could look that way, because I was mostly shopping at stores that didn't sell superwash, as weird as that sounds. It was really my first exposure to it. So then I went on the Malabrigo website. I absolutely fell in love with the colorway Archangel. And there is an all over rib square necked sweater that I wanted to make myself with this. It's a really beautiful pattern. It has negative ease though. It wasn't until I watched, I think it was Wool Needle's Hands, I think it was Taylor Earle, talking about superwash that I realized how much it tends to grow, and it doesn't really have memory the way that wool normally does. And so I don't think that this would be a good choice for that pattern anymore, which means I need to find something else to do with this yarn, because I do think it's absolutely beautiful. And I don't actually have a problem with superwash. There's a decent amount of superwash in my stash. Admittedly, a lot of it was before I learned the difference. But, I've knit with superwash before. I'm fine with it. I just need to find something that superwash works really well for, I think. Now we get into the leftovers. This is Vivacious DK by Fiber Spates Yarns. 100% superwash. I have 3 skeins of this. I think I bought this to practice. I think I bought this because I was working on something else. I remember. This was right after I bought that beautiful cashmere merino cloud yarn in Bronze Goddess. I was so afraid to work with it, and I felt like I wasn't a good enough knitter for it, that I wanted to buy some cheaper yarn. So I have 3 skeins of this in this really great sort of textured charcoal color. Like, I really like this color. I've got to figure out something to do with this, because that's a decent amount of yarn that honestly I completely forgot I had until this moment. So this is a bunch of leftover, this is my Gwen box. This is a bunch of leftover yarn from projects that I worked on for Gwen. This is an Illimani Santi, which I believe is a DK silk merino alpaca, I think. And I made her sort of a self-drafted carnation lariat based on a crochet pattern that I can throw up here. And I had an extra skein of this when I was over, so that's in here. These are skeins left over from when I made her the Monica sweater by Beck Penner. This I should figure out how to reskein up, or I should cake, because it's absolutely falling apart. But it was my first colorwork project. It was one of my first finished sweaters. I really love Beck Penner's work. She hasn't done a ton of patterns, but the patterns that she has done that I've worked on, this and the short and sweet sweater, are really easy to follow, just really great patterns. And this is such a great yarn. It's Art Yarn Silky Twist, which is 80% extra fine merino, 20% silk, and it's so soft and fluffy. And Gwen absolutely loved that sweater. And this sort of I think it's called Funfetti, this colorway, 625, whatever that is. It's just so fun. And I have almost a sweater's quantity of it left, honestly, if you combine it with the sort of corally pink. So I can definitely make something else for Gwen with that. I wasn't sure what color was going to work well with that corally pink. So I actually also bought Silky Twist in this really beautiful sky blue. I ended up going with the confetti color, but I do really love this. And I think at some point it needs to become a hat or something similar. And then this is, Nimbus Gray Rios. So this is left over from the Monica sweater that I made Aspen, which was gray and red. Because again, I like to make the same pattern for my kids, but just switch up the colorways so that they feel a little bit more personal. I think I have this in here because I think these colors look really good together. So I might do something with that. But it's mixing superwash and non-superwash. I'm not sure how that's going to go. We'll see. Other than my travelogue for when I went to San Francisco, this might be the longest video I've ever filmed. I really hope that my audio's working and everything. So these two sort of go together. So because they're the same type of yarn. They're Wow Worsted from Gallery Yarns. You get these nice fat skeins of super fine merino, non-superwash, single ply, and they're so soft. Yeah, I've got 3 in this hunter green, which I believe I was going to make something from some sort of sweater for myself with. I don't know what. Why do I keep buying yarn to make myself things and then I never make myself things? I always make things for other people. I think I like the idea of knitting for myself, but when it comes to sitting down to take the time, it feels I should be using that time on someone else because I'm already getting the enjoyment out of doing the knitting that it almost feels indulgent, I guess, to then enjoy knitting something for myself. Is that weird? Some people don't like doing gift knits because they don't like letting go of the object. They don't like the idea that the person that they're knitting for might not take care of it or might not value it in the same way. But to me, one of the reasons why I really like doing gift knits is because the entire time that I'm working on a gift knit, I'm thinking about the person that I'm knitting it for, and I'm thinking about how much I like them and how much they mean to me. And how great they are and how happy I am that they're in my life and how lucky I am that I get to do something good for somebody. Because love languages are kind of fake, but also my love language is absolutely gifts and acts of service. And so to me, it's less about the object that I'm making and more that I'm giving a physical representation of the fact that I spent hours thinking about how much I care about somebody to them. And so what they do with it afterwards is not really any of my business. It's really just me being like, hey, I love you, and here's the condensed essence of me thinking about and loving you in an object that you can have and do with whatever you want. But this is it's just literally an externalization of my feelings about somebody. That's why I almost exclusively knit for other people, I think. And I don't feel the same urge to externalize how I feel about myself. And also probably I have much more complicated feelings about myself than I do about the people that I care about that aren't me. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe all of the yarn that I bought for sweaters for me is a representation of how much I wished that I cared about myself the way that I care about other people. Maybe I'm going to cut this part. I don't know. We'll see. This is going to be a really long video, so maybe I'll just leave that in as a little vulnerability Easter egg for anyone who makes it this far. More Wow Worsted from Gallery Yarns. This I bought for Gwen. I was planning on making her a nutkin. I think it's based off of a pattern called Puddle Duck for kids, and then the Puddle Duck pattern was so popular and so cute, people asked for an adult version. And Gwen's style is 100% clothes that you would put on a kid, but for an adult. And this is such a beautiful sky blue, and she really loves pastels. So I thought it would be perfect for her. This is sort of cheating because this is not remotely the full quantity that I have of this yarn. I still have an entire unopened bag of this yarn because I bought so much of it. It's very expensive yarn, but I got it on, I think, like a 60% off sale at a place that was doing clearance. This is Rowan Sultano, which is 42% silk, 35% mohair, 23% cashmere. And it's this ribbon style yarn. I bought a bunch of this in the colorway Juniper, and that's what I used to make Adam the Winter League pullover that I made for him last Christmas. And I loved that yarn so much, and I loved the feel of it, that when I saw that I could get more of this yarn very cheaply, I was like, I'm going to get this yarn to make something for myself, because burgundy, again, is one of my favorite colors. I believe I was planning on making a Winter League pullover for myself for this. I showed in my Worst Whips video that I had started making a different V-neck sweater that I didn't love the look of. So probably this is going to end up being another Winter League pullover. This was yarn that I bought at Woolstock, I believe it was called. It's a knitting cafe in Copenhagen from Manos del Uruguay. It's just beautiful. I wanted to buy some yarn there as a souvenir. You know, it was such a shame. I spent a year living in Copenhagen, and I started knitting a little bit while I was there, and then I fell off. But I never got nearly as into knitting as I am now while we were there. Oh, it's alpaca heather. And it's just really beautiful. It feels a little rustic, this sort of muted lilac and gray, like the variegation. I just really like it. So I think I was planning on doing a ranunculus with that when I bought it. I don't know. So this is another thing that I got from Atelier Yarn in San Francisco when I was at the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. Jade Sapphire is one of my favorite brands of yarn, and this Mongolian cashmere 6-ply, which I believe is like a DK in the color Red Light District, was another very selfish yarn purchase. This is 100% going to be a thing for me someday. I really love the variegation. I really love that dark, rich red. Yeah, the feeling of their Mongolian cashmere, I just absolutely love. This is yarn that I bought on a birthday excursion to Beautiful Knitters in Pimlico. It is, babe, how do you say Cisluriga? Cisluriga? Close enough. This is the Cisluriga Merino Singles in the colorway Floating. It's this rich, warm, golden variegation. Again, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with this. I think at the time I was thinking yet another Isham Road, but since then I've learned the joys of knitting in the round with not fingering weight yarn. So it's much harder for me to motivate myself to make something that is pieced and seamed out of fingering weight yarn. I'll get there someday. Maybe this will become something else that's in the round, but in this butter yellow. Actually, maybe the Pedal Party tank might be good in this, actually. I'll think about it. And this was another whoopsie. This is once again from Farmer's Daughter Fibers in Great Falls, Montana. I was concerned about the colorway I bought for the anniversary blanket originally, Bittersweet Nightshade. I was afraid it was too purple, particularly when I compared it to the sort of minty green yarn that I got from Copenhagen. If you're not familiar, the whole conceit of that blanket, each color of yarn is from a different place that Adam and I have lived. So our hometowns, and then all of the places that we've lived together, which are Seattle, Copenhagen, and here in London. So Farmer's Daughter's Fibers from my hometown of Great Falls, Montana. I really love everything they're doing. That's why I continue to buy from them even though I'm in London. And I was concerned that the Bittersweet Nightshade was just a little too purple for the other blues that I had going on. So I bought this as a backup yarn. And it turned out that when I swapped out the sort of minty Copenhagen yarn for another one that was more of a traditional periwinkle blue, the purple actually worked much better than this. So now I have this really great sort of cadet slate blue color. This is also a very Adam color, so this will probably turn into something for him. In their Pushkin, which I believe is 100% Montana and Wyoming Rambouillet, non-superwash. It has a really great feel. It's very toothy yarn, and I really, the twist I think will lead to really great stitch definition. Also a big fan of this. We're at 34% on the camera. I started at 100%. God only knows how long I've been filming. So this is Art Yarn Merino Cloud. Oh, this is leftover from the second garment that I ever finished, which was an Isham Road for my kid Aspen. This is actually probably my favorite variegated yarn that I've ever used, and I'm so glad that I have this much left over. I have almost 3 skeins of this. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it's almost like an oil slick effect. It's very dark. It's like a dark blue-black, but then you also get these runs of burgundy and of like green and a lighter blue. Like it's just, and by lighter, I mean lighter than the almost black color. And it works up so subtly. that I think it's just a remarkable effect. And I really, really love this. I know that Aspen would absolutely love for me to make them something else in this, but honestly, I'm probably going to save it for me. This was another Fiber for the People impulse purchase. I fell in love with this color. I think it was one of the Lucky Strikes that Taylor did. It's maguey, like the cactus. I had a friend named Maguey. It's the Born, Shorn, and Dyed Nevada Merino Rambouillet, and it's just such a great sort of sagey, deserty, faded green. I was actually thinking about using this to make something for one of my best friends, but he very politely told me he doesn't leave the house anymore, so he doesn't really need any like cold weather accessories. Don't really need that for him. But it's such a great color. I'm sure I'll use it as part of my Christmas knitting at some point this year. This was another sort of impulse purchase, also from It's a Stitch Up in East London. I bought it when I bought the charcoal for the anniversary blanket. Speaking of sort of oil slick effect, I believe that's literally what this is called. This is the Awesome Erin 100% British Blue-Faced Leicester. Space Race is what it's called. But it's another great sort of oil slick effect. I think I might use this to knit up some accessories for Aspen's best friends. I've basically ended up accidentally adopting two young men that Aspen plays Minecraft with on the internet. They've been over to the house before. They're really great. I love them. We're all in a Discord together. So yeah, I might be using this to make my sons something for Christmas. This is a large quantity of undyed yak silk from Tribe Yarns that I bought to make a V-neck blouse called Jushi, I believe. I still think this would be great for that. It's another knit flat and piece together thing, knit and fingering weight. So I think that's probably why I haven't done it yet. But that's another thing I really want to add to my wardrobe. I think I just forgot that this exists. This, honestly, I should just give away. I think now it's just called Isair Soft. It's 56% alpaca, 44% cotton. I bought this because it was on my local yarn store's website in the bulky weight category, but it's not bulky weight, it is an Aran. This was my first choice for making Adam the Winter League pullover, but it's the wrong weight for that. And I don't love it as much as I loved it on the website. So I just have a ridiculous amount of it. And I don't know, if I had more than, what is it today, 18 subscribers, I would do a giveaway with some of this yarn. I should really just look into a local buy nothing group. Last two, I really feel like I should have planned the order in which I went through my yarn a little bit better to save some of the really cool stuff for the end. I'm worried that this is going to be a little bit anticlimactic. This is Malabrigo Rios in plain black. This was the color I was originally going to use to go with the sort of red. I think it was their limited edition Aries, because Aspen's an Aries color for their Monica sweater by Beck Penner. But I really hated the feeling of knitting with this. In talking with my friend Kate, sometimes the black for Malabrigo can get over dyed in a way that this almost feels plasticky in the way that the other Malabrigo superwash doesn't. And she said that everyone she knows who's worked with the Malabrigo Rios in the pure black has had problems with the color running. So she said she would really strongly recommend that I not use it for color work. So I just put that aside and then bought the Nimbus Gray instead, which worked beautifully. There was no color running as far as I could tell from that. But it does mean that I need to come up with something all black that I can use this for, and I'm sure I'll be able to do that. Last one, impulse purchase at Nitty City in New York City when I was there for the New York Toy Fair for work. This is Lang Magnolia. It's extra fine merino. I think Lang does a really beautiful chainette, and I really love the neutrals here. I might make a cowl or a scarf or a shawl or a hat for my niece Erin, because I know Erin really loves neutrals, and I think that this is, it's an unneutral neutral because of the variegation. I think it's really beautiful. It's so soft, and it's 85% extra fine virgin merino and 15% nylon. It's got the strength in there too. I just think it's beautiful, and that's why I purchased it. So what have we learned? We've learned that I have too much fucking yarn. That's for sure. We've learned that you can buy a lot of yarn in a year and a half. To sum up, these are 5-liter bins, and I showed you 34 of them. I showed you 3 15-liter bins. I don't know how big the small ones are, but I showed you 12 of those. And then we've got the tubes and the other. Yeah, even if you take out the bread and butter yarn that was 2 bins for the same project, and you don't count the small ones, because the dozen small ones, only a few of them have a sweater quantity of yarn. So if you just go 2 big bins and the 30 and 33, so that's 35. I've got 35, and I guess you can count the tubes, sure. 36 sweater quantities of yarn here. I've knit 7 garments in the last year and a half. So I've got about 5 years of sweaters, if you count the way I've been going through things. I always said that I was better at buying yarn than I was at knitting, and I don't know if you believed me, but here we are. So yeah, I've got about 5 years of garments ahead of me with this. Now you understand why I've been trying not to buy yarn for the last couple months. I haven't been fully succeeding, but I've certainly been buying less. This is sort of like I threw myself my own intervention. I was going to ask, is there anything you think is missing from my stash? Like, I don't know, maybe a gun to blow my own brains out, or some amount of self-discipline. I certainly don't think there's yarn missing, but if you think there's something that would round this out nicely, if you have any ideas for using up any of the yarn that I've shown you, I would be all ears. On that note, if you enjoyed this very chaotic, very whirlwind tour through my yarn stash, please do like and subscribe, comment, tell me that I need professional help, either to, psychologically, or just to move all of this yarn back up the 2 flights of stairs to my office. Either way. All right. So thanks so much for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one, back up in my office with all of this safely stored away. Bye.